There you are. This guy who's a friend of ours in Atlanta, who's in this program that I was running this summer, he said that he tried to think about where he was going to start, and he figured it didn't matter where he started because he'd always end up at the same place.
At the same place.
Yeah, so it didn't matter. Well, you know, wherever you start, you're going to end up at the same place. So it's okay.
Well,
but I'll just sit down here since I got that going, and just wanted to ask you about, you know, the early days when before you all moved to Dennison.
To Dennison.
Yeah.
Well, we lived with Tom's mother. Well, I'll start I guess I'll give him a little bit about my family. See, it was 14 of them, 10 girls and 4 boys. And I was the third. I was the third girl. And we, mother and dad, my dad, he farmed, and then he was a barber, cut hair, and then he had a little confectionery shop. My mother.
Where was that?
In Amet.
Amet?
Well, let's say like in Amet, we call it Butler Town. We said Butler Town. I was in it, and had a little confection. We lived just across from the church. And they'd have big rallies, and we'd have good crowds on Sundays, Sunday afternoons. And that's the way I grew up when I went to school. We didn't have too much school. We would go for 3 months at that time. And just by the time we think we were going to start really getting in school, we start practicing for a concert. Well, I married when I was 17. Of course, you know, I grew up fast because I had to be the mother of so many other little ones coming in, you know, help mother with the babies. And of course, I grew up real fast. Oh.
Where did you get that microphone?
And, well, I married when I was 17. I started with Tom. And we lived with his mother. We stayed with her. We left, we married in 1918. And we came to Ohio in 1924.
Yeah, let me let you.
So you can contradict her. That's what you do, wouldn't it? He ought to, though, because he can add a lot of things that Mommy don't know.
Well, I just want to.
Trying to get the
Okay.
trace back as far as we can move. Well, we don't know about the little kids, don't they? Like to know. We'll get
Yeah, okay.
Well, I want to change it a little bit. I want to go back and tell the children who their great-parents, great-grandparents were.
Yeah, that. And also, whatever you could tell about them.
I thought maybe Dad sit out there and help. Come on.
There isn't too much that I can tell my grandmother. She was a little slave girl. She wasn't old enough to work in the field. She watched the kids. And she was, freedom was declared when she was 11 years old.
What was her name?
Melissa Steptoe. That was her name, Melissa Steptoe. And my granddad, I never did get to see him. He was a minister. His name was John Steptoe. And when they met, I don't know just where they met, but they lived in Mississippi. Mother never did tell us just where it was, but when they moved to Louisiana down to Amet, well, my granddad, he finally left my mother, my grandmother, and he went out west at a place they called Indian Territory at that time.
Yeah.
At that time, that's what it was called.
About when was that?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Mother, they were just kids when he left. See, there was
So it must have been
3
about
girls.
1870s.
Must have been. There was 3 girls of them, and how many boys? Uncle Les, Uncle Tom, Uncle. There were 4 boys of them, and my grandmother, she finished raising the kids, and she was very good. She's kind of fussy, but I loved her, and she loved me. She loved us, all of us kids. But she seemed to have taken to me. And my daddy's mother, her name was Amy Johnson. And she died when my brother, he was next to the oldest, my sister Pearl.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, now we got a power.
Oh, well, before I get into my daddy's mother, I'll tell how why my granddad stepdad had to leave Mississippi. He was very mean. He didn't take any stuff. And the whites came down to beat him up or kill him one night. They lived in a log cabin, my mother said. And they came and he went out and he hid in the woods someplace. They didn't find him. But they shot through the house. But they have not hit anyone.
Mm.
Yes, and then after that, she said then they left.
Why were they after him?
I don't know. Mother never did. He was so mean. I don't know. He said, they said he was mean. He was so mean. I don't know just what he had done. But they come on to emit then, and then after that, then that's what happened when I don't know what happened, that they got and had a disagreement and he left her with the children.
Mm-hmm.
So after my mother married my dad, his mother's name was Amy Johnson. Now who his daddy was, I'm telling this so the children will get it straight.
Mm-hmm.
He was a love child. I don't know who his daddy was.
Mm-hmm.
When he was grown and had us kids, and we were all big kids, and he said he met a fellow up to the station, and he come to him one day and say, "Your name Rob Johnson?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Boy, I'm your dad, some white guy." And I never wanted to own that. I'm telling this so the kids will know, so that they won't want to own it either. I never did. I never did like it. If he couldn't own him before,
Mm-hmm.
when he could do something for him, I thought that was nothing. But I don't know how that happened, but he told him he was his daddy. My dad came back and told us, that's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad, he was hard working. My grandmother, she was a little lady. She married again, and she married I don't know how many times. But she had other children, but we weren't very close to them for some reason. And he was a farmer, and we never knew anything about all this white stuff going on because we was very sheltered. My mother didn't allow us out of the yard half the time, and when we had to go to the store, we went and come right back. We heard things, but we never saw anything. The worst thing I ever saw, that wasn't too bad, but it could have been. A kid right across, neighbor just crossed the yard. This kid, I don't know if he had stolen something. They say he had stolen something, and here come, he's about 10 years old or 11. Here come a bunch of whites down.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to beat him up and find him. They couldn't find him. He climbed on top of the kitchen roof. It was, I can't tell you just how that house was built, but you know how some of the houses in the South are built.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow he got up on that kitchen roof, and he laid right behind the stovepipe, and they was all out in the yard, and they'd never seen him. I was so afraid they was going to find him. I was so afraid, but a whole bunch of white men come down for that child. That's the worst thing I ever saw. But I know they wanted you to call him Mister and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But to see any of the other stuff, and my dad, he never mingled with them very much. We was just kind of a set aside bunch, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not, well, that's the way we felt. That's the way I'm not telling it just exactly like it was, but you know what I mean. We wasn't just down to low class.
Mm-hmm.
My mother and dad we was always up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never got to know too much about all that other stuff, but I'd hear them talking.
Yeah.
I remember one time when they hung 6 Italians, but I was married at that time. They had supposed to rob some place down at a little town right below our home. And they tried them, and they brought them up, took them to New Orleans for safekeeping. And they brought them back to Emmet, that was the county seat, and for trial. And they had the trial, and they hung all 6 of them. One was a young boy, and that was a terrible feeling at that time. And I wanted to leave right after that. I wanted to leave Louisiana, and it wasn't too long before Tom came to Ohio. And then we came up. He came up in October, I think, and he sent for me in December.
Came up for the job?
Yeah, he came up with John.
Well, for a job?
For a job. Oh, yes, for a job. Well, job was he always had some kind of little work most of the time down south, but it didn't pay very much, you know. And so when he came up here, then things got more money got to coming in. Of course, living got better for us, you know. And then Richie, no, Richie wasn't in school yet, but he was just 2 years old. That's right. He came up here.
Richie was born in...
In Louisiana.
Oh.
Yeah. He was born in my mother's
that's
house.
Right.
Yeah. Born 1922. We came up in 24. And I was so proud of him. I had lost 2 babies, and I prayed so for him, and here he come, and I just never had love enough for him, you know. And he was our pride and joy, and Tom's always been a good father. And my mother and all my sisters, we all done very well. Done very well.
What was Tom like when he was young, when you first met him?
When I first met him. When I first met Tom, I tell you, when I first met Tom, I didn't want nothing to do with him. He was like to fight, you know. He was, I didn't want nothing to do with him. Not at all. I can't even describe. I wish I could see some kid around here to see it. I just didn't want nothing to do with him. But after he grew up, he changed. Oh, he changed, and I thought he was the greatest. He come back. He went up in Illinois and worked a while and come back, and he dressed well, and he was all right then, you know. And that's when I started to fall for him. Yes, and we've been together ever since. And always been sunshine, but we've made it, you know.
Well, that's the way I guess it is.
That's the way it is in life, because it's 2 different people, you know.
Yeah, you got to just work it out, and then you understand each other.
Now his mother's named Emma Lewis, and that was her maiden name. He can tell you more about that than I can, but she was a hard worker. He was raised without a father. And she was a good woman, a Christian woman. I loved her. She was so good to us. And her sister, she had a sister. Her name was Martina, but we always called her Aunt Mart. And I just loved her. I did. And then he had a sister, Rebecca. She had quite a few kids. Well, she was all right. I wasn't around her as much as I was his aunt, you know. And that's who he's got living now, some of her children. Now, he probably can tell you more about his granddad, whatever his name was. He remembers him, but I don't. I didn't know nothing about him at that time. No, when I first met him, I wouldn't have given a penny for him, because he was something else.
Yeah.
He wouldn't stay in school. What little school we had, you know. Oh, he just didn't want that part of it, you know. I don't know, he must have saw a lot. He must did. But we made it through, and so I'm trying to think now. That's about the highlights, because I wasn't allowed out too much. I was too sheltered. Mother didn't. She was pretty tight on us girls, the whole family of us, mother and dad.
Did you see a big difference when you got up here to down in there?
Not too much. Not too much. Not at that time. I didn't.
Between the
races. They tried, but, you know, maybe it was me. You know, maybe it's me now. Yeah,
I don't think so. But
I think they tried, but I never did believe they were true. I never did. They'd grin and talk, but I thought a lot of it was me. But now, I know a lot of it wasn't me, see. I know better now. Or what I found here, that the kids go to school, and the kids mingle, and one hits you, hit him back, and nothing to it, you know. Just 2 kids out there fighting, or something like that. That's the biggest difference I found, tell you the truth. And the money. That's the biggest difference I found in the South. And right now, right now. I think they got some, but I think a whole lot of it is me, though, I think. You know.
Well, you got good reason. But I don't know. I don't know if the differences were, I guess the danger wasn't as great here.
No,
but I don't think
no, that's right.
I don't think the
That.
sincerity was any better here.
No, no, Mike. I'll never believe it. And I don't believe it now. I don't believe it now. There was a time they had a flood, and Tom and them had been out someplace, and he was coming home, and they had some streets blocked off, and I think I might tell this wrong. He ought to be out here. But anyhow, they wanted him to stop. He was in the car with somebody, and I don't know just what happened. One of them spoke out, "We'll string you up," or something like that, Tom said. They said to him. And I know Tom must have cursed him or said something. You know, he didn't take it. But he came home, and we kind of felt a little uneasy about that. I said, "Let him come on out here. I'll feed you the shells if you shoot them. All I want you to do is just fire them. I'll sure give them to you." But see, such things as that, you know where their minds are to make a remark like that. So, yes, no, Mike, it isn't. I can't see it. A lot of people think so, but I can't see it because things come to push, you can see the true colors. See the true, but I have to put myself in there because maybe if I'd have been raised like you kids, I could see it different, But I've been told things and seen things where little kids want you to say yes, ma'am, and no, Tom, and I said, heck with you down south. Kids, little kids younger than you.
Yeah.
You say yes to me. Just like that was going to make them so great for you to say yes to them. I wasn't studying about them. I didn't have to call them nothing. Just wait on me. That's in the stores, the only place I'd meet them. Yeah, say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am to me. And what they did want you to get off the sidewalk for them. If they didn't, you'd bump into them, if you stayed on there. They just thought they owned the whole sidewalk.
I was working with some ladies at a senior citizen center in Atlanta, and they used to tell me the white folks would stop and make the men dance out in the street.
That's what they said.
And they'd be out there dancing and dodging cars and things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was really, just be walking down the street and somebody decide they want to make you dance.
Well, they had, I don't know about making them dance, but they had some. Now, that was the bunch that hung around town, around town, that hung around. They wasn't like our boys, and I don't think Tom them done it either. But they didn't do something that this white man wanted them. They'd beat them up. I couldn't see that. Mr. Morgan, Mr. this one, Mr. that one. No. But that's the way it was, and I'm glad maybe it's getting, you young kids making it better, though. That's one of the things. You're not, the older people, I think, a lot of them they're just willing to take things more willingly,
But that much evil in the world just can't stay.
That's true.
It can't stay for too long. It's got to even out, get back to normal.
Yes.
Craziness has got to fade away at some point.
But the thing, they want to be superior. They want above everybody, and especially above the blacks. And I can't see it. Well, one blood made us all. But I just wanted the kids to know their grandparents.
Yeah.
Don't ever forget it. Robert Johnson and Maggie Steptoe and Melissa Steptoe and John Steptoe. Don't forget those. And don't forget Mama Emma. That's Tom's mother. We always call her Mama Emma. Mama Emma. Mama Emma. See, what was she? She was Mama Emma Gordon, but she was, her maiden name was Lewis.
And there were 11 of you kids.
There's 14 of us
14
kids.
of you
10
kids.
girls
Uh,
and 4 boys.
what were all their names? You remember?
Oh, sure. All our names. Pearl was oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar and Myrtle, Mabel, Barbara, Oliver, Katie, Vivian, Ora, Jack, Inez, Bill, and Louise. That's their name. Yeah, Barbara, she died just last October.
Yeah.
She was in California, you remember.
Yeah.
She died in California. And my grandmother, she died with hypertension, and so did Uncle Les, her son. They were burying her, and Uncle Les were dying at the time. That's just how that went. And
Yeah.
her oldest daughter was named Josephine. She had 2 girls. And they're all gone now. I don't think I got any aunts living that I know anything about now. They're all gone. And just the 4 of us girls living now. That's Ines, Katie, and Louise. And
Are
me.
they in Amit?
Katie and Louise is in. Katie's in New Orleans, and Louise is Independent, and Ines is in Uritsville. Yeah, no, not in Amit. Independent is just a suburb almost of Amit. She get her mail through Amit, you know, that way.
Yeah, I've been wanting to go over there ever since you all went back with Barry.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to go down there, and we just have never made it. I don't know
I
why.
wish you could make it. Go down there and meet some of your people.
Yeah.
My brother Bill, his name is Robert, we call him Bill. He's got a bunch of real nice kids. They all got fine kids, but Bill he's got about 8 or 9 down there. They're all just so sweet. I'd love for you to meet them.
We just have to drive over. We just have to decide one time.
Yeah,
to
just
drive
decide
over.
to take off and go over there. It isn't that far, is it?
It should be about a 7 or 8 hour drive.
No, that isn't too bad.
No.
Did you come up here by yourself? Oh, you and Nancy. You kids, I tell you. You worry us to death.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay.